She is a financial planner and advisor.
He's the founder and president of Zinnia Wealth Management. He's also a popular radio host.
There's a way to have your money in the market and have protected growth.
This holistic approach will help people get to and through retirement.
Absolutely.
You have to change the way that you think. It's not about having these double-digit returns anymore. Things are changing, and you have to have an advisor that's keeping up with the changes.
Your outcome is going to become very desirable if you have some sort of coach helping you along the way.
And our next recipient from the Media and Communications XP, Sharice
Rivers.
Do not have to risk all your money in the market to survive, because it's about the retirement dream.
All righty, welcome back to Retirement Coffee Talk, our every Thursday at 3:30 Facebook Live. We have lots to talk about today, and I'm hoping not to go more than 45 minutes, but we'll see how that goes. I am Sharice Rivers, your host, and I'm here to inspire you, educate you, and get you to retirement and beyond. So let me give you a pregame of what's going on today. We're going to talk a little bit about the stock market. Governor DeSantis has a few things coming down the line I want to talk about, and then we're going to do our first trivia ever. So I'm going to have 4 questions, 2 that are related to last week's, and then a fun one, and then just an outrageous one. And whoever gets all 4 right gets $100 to their charity of choice. And we'll be doing this every week. Okay, so, and don't forget, we're going to do the Zinnia U education. We're going to be talking about the life insurance, who needs it, who doesn't need it. There's some people out there that are wasting their money that do not need it, but there are a couple people who do. So we're going to figure out who that is and which one to get, because it's very confusing between whole life, term policies, and universal life. And then the next thing we're going to talk about is 401ks. A lot of people left them behind. Old employers are no longer working there. What to do with them now? And then as of recent, some big companies are not matching your 401ks. We're going to talk about what you should be doing with that. Okay, so let's jump right in. What is driving the stock market? So last week, the stock market was down 1,800 points. Just down, down, down. And then this week it started coming back up. I know today it doesn't look so great, but it still is a lot further up than it was last week. And so what drove it this week is retail was up 17.7% this week. And that was for the month of May. Here's my only issue with that. That was just the month of May. Well, guess what? Last month things started opening. So of course retail is going to go up. But I think for quarterly earnings, unfortunately, retail might go down. So we'll see. But I'm glad for the month. It hiked up the stock market, which is great. There was a positive trial. They're saying that there's a new drug that had positive trial in the hospitals where it's keeping 1/3 of the people from dying because of COVID-19. This is excellent news. We're very excited about that, and hopefully more comes from that. There's also a $1 trillion push for infrastructure per Donald Trump. He's talking about stuff with the bridges and roads and really building up 5G, so that some of these rural areas that are not getting very good internet, that will help there. 5G, folks, that's something to pay attention to. If you're not investing in it, I would highly recommend it. It's going to be one of those things for our future. And 5G just means we can download things a lot faster on our computers and our phones, and there's so much more we could do with that. And lastly, possible fiscal stimulus is a possibility that they said they might need to help boost the economy. So some more money coming out later. We'll see about that. So all that moved the market up a little bit. So we're not as bad off as we were last week. So by Friday, let's hope something happens and we're back to our norm. Like I say, every other week, it's like Groundhog's Day around here, up, down, and all around. The question is, do we test new lows here after second quarter, or after we get a second wave of the virus? So something I do need to state is that some big states out there like Florida, Georgia, Texas, a few others, hospitals have doubled in coronavirus visits. So, does that keep going, and what the states are going to do next? So things to definitely worry about. I want to move on to Cramer. Caught wind of what he said this week, and he does make sense sometimes. And he did say, if we get a second wave of the coronavirus and it keeps going up, up, and up, he says, I recommend these 4 stocks. Honestly, I back him up on that. Zoom video, that's how we do all of our conference calling. We have Zscaler, CrowdStrike, and Ring Central. So Ring Central, I love Ring Central because a lot of people are ringing their phones from home or having these outside answering services do a lot of things for them. So again, some things to think about for stay-at-home stocks to possibly purchase. Not recommending them, but just saying I do like them. All right, Governor DeSantis. So there's been a little, on and off with him this week. Basically, he did say one good thing I like, that K through 12 in the state of Florida will be opening as usual. I'm not sure how he's going to plan that and how the schools are going to counter that and kids wearing masks and so on and so forth. So we'll see if that actually happens. But he did give us the clear, and he's letting the local districts decide exactly when to reopen. Also, the Republican National Convention is officially in Florida. So we have gotten the clear. It's going to be in Jacksonville in August. Now, one thing I do rave about Governor DeSantis, and so he got some slack, some criticism, but I get why. Some people are afraid that he's opened up too soon and too fast. And that's because people are worried about the convention in Jacksonville and also this NASCAR race. And we did talk about that last week. And I do worry a little bit about the NASCAR race and how that's going to be handled. And we will see. But the question is he opening too fast or not? I do know this. Florida is a hospitality state. And this is how Florida grows. And most jobs are derived from this kind of stuff. So he's just going full throttle. And let's hope it all works out. Central Florida. So this is pretty cool. I did an interview with Steve Spurrier, I don't know, a few months ago, and he was all about it. He said, Sharice, I think it's a great idea. It's a long coming. And he says the athletes deserve it. So I'm going to read it to you. It says a new bill that will allow NCAA athletes to be financially compensated for their name, image, and likeness, which I thought was interesting how they kind of spelled that out. And so the one good thing is that now it's passed in Florida, so athletes can get paid, but it might also keep some of these really great athletes that like to leave and go to Georgia or Buckeye or Ohio or Alabama. So we might be able to keep some of these really great athletes in Florida, go Gators, and hopefully they'll want to go there. So I don't think it's a bad thing. I'm going to back up Steve Spurrier. When I talked to him about that, I think it's an okay thing. At first I questioned it, but you know what? Everybody's going to make a couple of bucks here. And if they can't work and they need groceries, that always helps a little bit. That's me just being a little optimistic, of course. All right, let's talk about Alachua County. Alachua County says they're adding an extra 4 days to the early voting schedule in August. So that's good so that everybody has time to vote and get it done. So I think that's a great thing. And in Gainesville, here's a funny thing. I'm traveling between Gainesville and Beverly Hills and my Ocala offices. In Ocala, we are loaded with these gas stations called Wawa. And it's funny, a friend of me said, what is Wawa? I'm like, I don't know, but I really like the gas station because they have, amazing subs and ice cream shops inside of them. Well, guess what, Gainesville, they're coming your way. So that's the excitement in Gainesville. All right, we are done with our first segment. Let's jump into trivia. So this is the time just to really start getting that thinking cap on. I'm going to ask you 2 questions from last week. And it has to do with Roth IRAs and mutual funds, exchange traded funds, and index funds. So remember, if you get all 4 of my questions right, $100 to your charity of choice. Any 501c3, can even be a church. Okay, here we go. Question number 1. From last week's Zinnia U, which of the below is passively managed as opposed to actively managed? Is it the ETF, that's the exchange traded fund, the mutual fund, or the index fund, or is it or is it exchange traded funds and index funds? So you got 4 choices, A, B, C, D. A is exchange traded funds, B is mutual funds, C is index funds, and D is exchange traded funds and index funds. So which one? Go ahead, you can in your little box if you want to answer and join. I know it's the first time we've done this, and if you feel like this answering things last minute, that's okay. And for this week, since this is new, we'll just, whoever answers the most questions right, period. You'll have to get all 4 of them this week till we kind of get into a program here. And am I giving the answer now, Mike? Okay, well, I'm going to wait and we'll do it at later on at the end. Okay, number 2 question is from the previous ZNEU, which of the following is not true of Roth IRAs? A says earnings grow tax-free. B, qualified withdrawals are taxed and penalty-free. C, contributions are taxable. Or D, 59 and a half is the age when you can begin withdrawing without penalty. So I think next week I'm going to put it up so you guys can see it. It might be easier. So this is our first go. So number 2 question from ZNEU, which of the following is not true? It's not true about Roth. A, earnings grow tax-free. B, qualified withdrawals are taxed and penalty-free. C, contributions are tax deductible. Okay. D, 59 and a half is the age when you can begin withdrawing penalty-free withdrawals. Okay. I'm moving on to number 3. Okay, this is a fun one. This is one of our fun ones now. This should be easy for everybody. What song does Tom Cruise dance to in Risky Business? A, I Want to Dance with Somebody by Whitney Houston. B, When Doves Cry by Prince. I'm pretty sure that's not it. I'll just go ahead and give you a hint. 3, Old Time Rock and Roll by Bob Seger. And D, Living on a Prayer by Bon Jovi. All right, I'm going to do that one more time. What song does Tom Cruise dance to in Risky Business? A, I Want to Dance with Somebody. B, When Doves Cry. C, Old Time Rock and Roll. D, Living on a Prayer. Okay, that should be easy. I should see some answers in there soon. Now, here's the hard one. This is all about Charisse. Okay, number 4 and last question. What is Charisse's favorite summertime barbecue food? A, ribs. B, pork. C, coleslaw. D, barbecue beans. This one's pretty easy if you listen to my radio show and you listen time to time. What is Charisse's, that's me, remember the host, favorite barbecue? 1 is ribs. That's A. B is pork. C is coleslaw, barbecue beans, and D is coleslaw. Okay, let us know by the end of the show. We'll see who has the most answers. All right, we are going to move on. Now, this is our segment where we are going to talk about life insurance, who needs it, who doesn't, if you're young, mid-age, or retired, because I want people to know they should not be wasting their money if they don't need it. And so let's just start with, the big life insurance question. Who gets it? Number 1, we buy life insurance because we're trying to protect a spouse maybe that's not working. Or if you don't have a spouse, you want to make sure your kids, if you pass away early where you're working, whoever gets your children has money to feed them and do the things that they want to do, right? So there's a few different reasons and why we want to do this. So first of all, let's talk about independent kids. If you have kids, you need life insurance. I have yet to find somebody that has kids that doesn't need life insurance, okay? Those kids that are under 19 years old. If you have kids under 19 years old, those people need life insurance. And the reason is if you pass away, who's going to take care of them, right? Who's going to take care of those kids, especially if both spouses pass away? And we're going to talk about the most affordable life insurance in just a minute for that phase of life. But we're also going to talk about one that's kind of expensive, but it's really for a different phase of life. Now, let's talk about number 2. Let's say you are married. If you are married, should you have a life insurance policy? I say you do, okay? Even if the other spouse is working, it's sometimes advisable to get life insurance on both of you, or at least a higher income earner. And that's because when somebody passes away, that person that's still there in the house taking care of the kids, they have to go to work or go back to work or continue to work, whatever it is. So there's a lot of expenses for babysitters and, you got to come up with more money. So we definitely recommend, even if you're married and even if that spouse is working, you're both working, that you definitely buy life insurance. And there is an affordable way to do this, okay? Now, what if you're single? What if you have no kids? Well, if you're single and you have no kids, you probably don't need life insurance unless you're really just wanting to leave a legacy for somebody or a church or a charity. So most single people don't need life insurance. So that's good news, right? Now, let's just say you're already self-insured and you have all your debt paid off because The other reason to get life insurance is you have a mortgage. Most people have mortgages, right? If you pass away, maybe you use that life insurance to pay off the mortgage. So that is less of a burden for the spouse who's still in the house and taking care of kids, right? While you have that mortgage is also a good reason to have life insurance, because that can be a very, very big burden. And you don't want people moving out of a home that have been there for a while. So that is one thing. So if we're debt free and there's no mortgage, then maybe you don't need life insurance, right? You can self-insure. The only time that if you have no debt whatsoever is that if you are married and you are the sole income provider for the household, that's when you would consider getting life insurance. Because even though there's no debt, how does the spouse survive and bring an income, right? We want to make sure there's no lifestyle change if all possible, okay? And so definitely, depending on your age, life insurance can be really expensive. So let's talk about the two types of life insurance you can buy, the two most popular. And the number one is term life insurance. So term life insurance will go for 10 years to 30 years, right? If you go, hey, I want the 10-year policy, after 10 years, it goes away. So you might say, Sharice, I have 10 years left on my mortgage. I want to cover my mortgage for the next 10 years. And you can do that. You could even do it in declining order. Like if you had $100,000 left on your mortgage, you could get a life insurance that says, okay, this year it's worth 100, next year it's worth 90, next year it's worth 80. So it goes down. So it keeps premiums down. So we're trying to keep premiums down and cover those basics. And so that's term insurance. So term insurance, the only thing I don't like about it is that it eventually runs out. The one thing I do like about it is that it's very inexpensive. And the younger you are, those are the people who should really get this term insurance. The other thing, the reason to get term insurance is to replace income. So if you have a husband or a wife and only one of you are working and you're bringing in $50,000 to live on, they say you should have 8 to 12 times your salary in a life insurance policy. So that could mean $1 million policy, which, sounds really expensive, but $1 million policy when you're in your 30s and 40s is what, $40, depending on the company you go with. So, don't be afraid to get life insurance and cover those needs. Just remember, if you have kids or a spouse is not working, you need 8 to 10 times your salary and the death benefit. Okay, now let's talk about whole life insurance. So whole life insurance is different from term. Term, just think of the definition of term. It terms, it's done. The term is done. Whole life means for your whole entire life. So your whole life. So if you pass away at 60 or 70 or 100, it will cover you until you pass away. Whole life is more expensive. So there's a reason for that, right? It's going to cover you your entire life. It's more expensive. Whole life also provides an investment inside of it. So it provides cash value. So one of the ones I like a lot right now, two of them, is Penn Mutual and Mass Mutual. They pay between a 6.1 to a 7% dividend every year, and they don't miss that dividend. It's like clockwork. So you have this investment built into the whole life policy. So if you don't use it, you could borrow against it. So the one thing I like about whole life, if you've had it for 10 years, you could take a loan from it. So you might say, hey, I need 10 years later, I haven't died. I have this cash value grown nicely. And, maybe I need to go buy a car, Sharice. Should I go get a loan from the bank or should I borrow it from my life insurance policy? And I would say, absolutely borrow it from your life insurance policy. And the reason is because when you take a loan from the bank for $30,000, that $30,000 is gone forever, plus all your interest. And all you're left standing with is your car. If you borrow money from your life insurance policy and pull $30,000 out of it, well, you pay your life insurance back. So you still have that $30,000. So you never lost that $30,000 and you have your car. So you're making your money work for you. And there was a term, we're not even allowed to use it. It says be your own banker. I think it's like illegal to even say, I just said it, sorry. But it's kind of that concept. You're just borrowing from yourself and you pay yourself back. If you're going to pay $500 a month back to the bank, you just pay yourself $500 back. You still have your death benefit. You still get your cash value growing with interest, which is probably the most interesting part about that investment I like. And it never runs out, which is a really, really good deal. Okay. So remember, whole life, it's for your whole life. It is more expensive. Here are some other things. So listen, whether we're younger or older, term policies, they run out. there's no disability plan in it. There's no cash value. Okay, so it's kind of like the end of the road deal, but it's a cost effective to do in the short run. Whole life, you get a cash value and never runs out. You can borrow against it, right? Be your own loan holder, pay it back. The other thing is that they have these long-term care riders built into them. The ones that we offer are free. So if you or your spouse need, or depending on the policy, but if you ever need it for home health care, long-term care, you could accelerate the death benefit and use it for care and disability. Let's just say your spouse is the sole worker and now they get in a car accident and they're out in the hospital for 4 months. A lot of these whole life policies you can accelerate for disability to pay you. I've seen it help so many people out there. But here's the deal. You have Clark Howard and Dave Ramsey and Susie Orman that says, don't touch whole life, stick with term. And I understand why, because they say if you saved enough, you should need whole life as a possible investment, but they're not telling you the whole story. So there's pros and cons to both. I prefer a whole life that has a term built into it, so the term runs out and then you still have some whole life insurance added to it. So that is a strategy that I love to death, because then it never runs out and it keeps premiums down by a long shot. So that is a great strategy. So I would say, I have to tell you an example. I had a new person come into my office 2 weeks ago. I actually met with them just yesterday. And here's the deal. They came into my office saying, Cherise, I heard you on the radio. I want to talk to you about taxes, and you're really great at the tax strategies. And after I had evaluated their whole situation, they didn't have a tax problem. There was actually not a whole lot we could do with taxes. They had an income problem. And if the husband passed away, the wife lost 3 of his pensions, which means she lost $75,000 in income, which they're only in their 60s. So anything can happen. So I told him, like, you have to live for the rest of your life so your wife doesn't eat ramen noodles and sardines forever. And he's like, what are you talking about? I was like, your pensions run out. He's like, but Cherise, we have life insurance. I said, oh, fantastic. So they bought this life insurance. So in case he died, those pensions ran out, the wife could still live and not skip a beat. So then as a financial planner, I asked for this life insurance statement. So they brought 3 of them in. What we found about all 3 of those life insurance statements is that they were all term and they were all running out in 5 years. By the time they were 68 years old, there was no more life insurance. And the wife was like, you're kidding me. She's like, I have nothing that insures my income in case my husband passes away. I said, no. And they swore that their policies from their employers were good. And this Genworth policy was really good. And we called them. They say, no, sorry, it runs out in 5 years. And they're paying a lot of money in premium right now. And they never knew this, not for 30 years. And that's just because whoever they sat with or engaged before probably wasn't a financial planner and probably didn't go over some of this stuff. This is dotting your I's and crossing your T's to make sure, because if I met them 10 years ago, I would have got out of those plans and we would have put in something that would have lasted. And unfortunately, that just happened. So don't let that happen to you. It doesn't matter what age you are. You definitely need a life insurance checkup. And here's one of the big scary things. If you've been divorced and now you're remarried and you have the old spouse on that life insurance policy, guess who gets that money? The old spouse, not the new spouse. You got to make sure you're checking those and keeping those up to date. So let me just see if I covered everything when it comes to life insurance. There's so much more. Anybody who wants to have that life insurance talk, let me know. We can also run quotes for you. We have thousands of companies. So all I do is put your name and your age. And instead of you going to those websites that will have 5 people call you back and bother you until you finally buy something, just call me and I will do all the searching for you. We have access to most of the same stuff they do. And you won't get 5 calls. It'll just be me. And I'll just email you the quote. But definitely something to think about, whether you need term or whole life or a little both mixed in. So before I move on, I know there was a question, but I answered it. Are there any other questions, Mike? So if you're in your mid-30s and you're going to live a long life, they want to know, should you bother with term or just go to whole life? And it's going to be affordability, number one, and what your end all goal is. Is it for a mortgage? If it's just to cover a mortgage for 30 years, you might not need whole life. If you're married and you're like, yeah, I want to cover the mortgage and I want to cover income, but if I have a pension option for maximizing later, do I keep it? I'm a big fan of whole life policies. I really am. It helps my clients not have to go buy a long-term care policy. They can use this whole life policy, use it for long-term care to offset some costs. So it does so much. It has disability in it, cash value that grows. There's so many things. But I will tell you, there's always a few bad apples out there. There's been some whole life policy back in the day that did not work out. But and I know why. And people were over-promising and saying, hey, you're going to get a 12% dividend, which they never should have done. And so some people's policies didn't work out, but now they're really maximized for the rates that are really true to where they should be today. So I'm a big fan of them now. I will say, that person who asked that question, give us a call. I'll talk to you about it. And when I evaluate what you're really trying to do, I can give you the best feedback for that. Some people say, hey, Sharice, I have enough money saved up that I don't need whole life. Remember, that's self-insured. You have your debt paid off, you have plenty of savings. If you save well, then you might not need it. And so I've had people come in and say, hey, Sharice, I have this whole life policy. Do I need it? And they'll have a couple million saved and they're paying $600 a month for the whole life. I'm like, who's it for? And what we find out is they actually don't need it. So they're saving, $6,000 to $7,000 a year, and we're putting it into an investment. So it just depends on your situation. It's not cookie cutter. So I would love to have a conversation to see if that is something that is definitely necessary. Okie dokie. I am off to the races. We are doing the second part of the Zinnia U, and it's about your 401ks. Unless another question pops up about life insurance, just let me know, Mike. So 401ks. There are some issues with them right now. Big employers are not matching what you're contributing to. And so the reason is there's been a lot of cuts. A lot of companies aren't making as much money. So they decided to stop matching. So here's what I think you should do. If that is the case, I still think somehow, some way, you should still try to contribute more. So because you want to put money in the markets, especially if you're young, why the markets are down. So normally that match you would get would go in the market and be growing with your contribution. So I'd say, hey, maybe up your 401k contribution more. So if you are contributing 4%, up it to 5. If you're contributing 7%, up it to 8. So you can do those numbers. And I always say when you get a raise, ignore the raise and take those extra dollars and up your contributions into your 401ks. It's really important to do that. So if you get a 2% raise, you're like, Sharice, I really want to collect some of this raise, then maybe just up your contributions 1%. So if you're putting 8% in, only up at 9%, or 1 more percent, which equals 9, and then keep the rest. And if you do that every time you get a raise, you will be shocked. You will be to the 20% contribution zone, and you'll be saving a ton of money, and you won't even miss it. So I definitely recommend that. The other thing that you can do, and a lot of you out there can do this, is that instead of contributing that extra 1 or 2% to your 401k, since they're not matching, open a Roth. So engage a local financial planner. A lot of people are worried. I hear that almost 80% of people are very worried about engaging a financial planner because they feel like they don't have enough. And number 2, because they feel like it's too expensive. That shouldn't be the case. You give us a call. Even if you don't have enough, we'll help you out. And it's not too expensive. I promise you that. But you want to engage, because my job and our advisor's job is to say, hey, listen, you should open a Roth. You have this great 401k. If you got a couple extra bucks, we can contribute to a Roth IRA, because a Roth is tax-free. All of your IRA money is taxed one day. A Roth IRA is not. It's all tax-free. All your growth is tax-free. So I would actually implement a separate plan from what your employer is doing, because your employer is not a financial planner. They're just taking your money and turn into a goblin of money, and hopefully you make money, right? So that's basically how that works. So if they're not matching, that's what I recommend. Now, something else, which is a big deal. I had somebody come in last week and they had 4 401ks from old employers. And I said, why do you have 4 401ks from old employers? And they said, Sharice, I can't move it. I have a penalty and I'll pay taxes. I said, no. These employers are charging you 1.5%. You can since you're not working there anymore, it doesn't matter if you're 59 or 29 or 70, it doesn't matter how old you are. You can take that 401k from the old employer You can roll it to an IRA, pay no taxes and have no penalties. And now you can go and engage a local financial planner, not advisor, financial planner, so they can start planning with that money that you weren't sure what you were doing with it anyways, and creating some sort of income plan or so on and so forth. So those are some things that you want to do, because you really do want a financial advisor in your back pocket, because there's going to be a time, there's going to be an emergency, and you're going to pick up the phone and you won't have met anybody or been introduced to anybody. So I would say consolidate those 401ks. You can bring them to us or even your financial advisors if you love who you're with, and consolidate them into one IRA and create a plan. Do something a little different than what you're doing in your 401k, okay? And depending on your age, you might even be able to convert some of that IRA to a Roth and still not paying taxes, which is kind of a really cool thing that we do with our tax maximization strategies with our clients. So I definitely hope that helped. Just don't leave those 401ks. We call them orphan 401ks because they're doing nothing, and there's to try to get your money out of it sometimes is a little headache. So we can help you with that also. Okay, Mike, how long have we gone so far? I'm doing really good. I'm trying to be really quick here today. All right, so I know I answered one of the questions about the 401ks. Mike, if anything else pops up, just let me know. Any reason to do a 401k if you have a Roth? And so the answer is yes and no. So a Roth, if you have a Roth and you're under 50, you can contribute $6,000 to that Roth, and that is it. So you're limited. Now, if you have a 401k with an employer and you never got the 401k and you said, I'm thinking about contributing to it, you can contribute a lot more, and they might even match. And so if they match, that's free money that you're not getting anywhere else. So yes, I like that. If you're maxing out your Roth, that's a great idea. If you're over 50, you can contribute $7,000 a year, but that's it. And if you're going to be ready to retire here, if you're young and you're 20, you need to be contributing to something else, because that is not going to get you to retirement, not a good, happy, healthy lifestyle. So if you're working with somebody and you opted out of their 401k, get back into it. And hopefully they're also giving you a match. And if you're thinking, Sharice, I can only afford so much, just start with a 3% contribution. And as you get a raise, like I said, bump it up some. And if the company matches, that is free money that they're giving you. So yes, I am a fan of contributing to those 401ks if you have an employer that has them. But if you're self-employed, you can get a solo 401k. You can get a simple IRA. I kind of like the simple IRA. That's what we do in our office with everyone. But the solo 401k does something a little bit different. And then you have your SEP. So there's a lot of, if you're self-employed, options to do that. I'd be happy to discuss that with you if you are self-employed, or if you're starting a business, you're trying to figure out what to do. You want to do something. But I will tell you, if you decide, hey, I'm going to contribute to a Roth and an IRA, the total, if you're under 50, is $6,000. But so you can do $3,000 in a 401k and $3,000 in a Roth. Now, if you're over 50, it's 35 and 35. So you can't go over that maximum amount of $7,000 or $6,000. Just make sure, because if you over contribute, you get an excise tax, and that's going to hurt at the end of the year. So don't make that mistake. And that's why you talk to a planner about that. Okay, let's move to good news. I don't know, Mike, do you have the picture up? You can go ahead and pop it up. This is our last segment before we go into the Q&As, if there are any more left. All right, is it up, Mike? All right, so here's our village people. They're so creative. So they're looking for some entertainment. And so they had this guy, he's a resident and he's a retired radio DJ, Rick Mitchell, that came up with this idea of hosting trivia night for neighbors. He hosted outside, and everyone remains in their golf carts in the driveways to keep distance. I love the creativity. So nobody wants to go to the movie theater. Nobody wants to get too close. But I think my neighborhood should do something like this. I would be the first one showing up. So I think that was really creative and cool. So I like people thinking out of the box here. And guess what? It probably didn't cost anybody a dime. All right. The last good news I want to post up there is a nonprofit. So there's this young lady who, I'm going to just give you some detail. Her name is Alexandra DeRoos, who is named Miss Gainesville Outstanding Teen. She recently started a nonprofit called Peace Love Leotards, and they collect gently used dance gear to give those who are in need in order to make dance more accessible. And so far, the contributions, people are like, she's collecting dance shoes and leotards and tights, things that don't have holes, of course. And she has so far picked up $2,000 worth. I like this girl. She's young. She's created this nonprofit to help other people. Do you guys know how much dance clothes and dance shoes are? I danced my whole entire life, ballet, tap, and jazz, and gymnastics. My daughter's in it now. And this child goes through it so fast because she's only 10 years old and she's growing like a weed. And so I'm definitely going to go through her closet and send all this stuff over to them. That's Peace Love Leotards. I'm sure you can Google this name, Peace Love Leotards, if you have any grandkids or anything. And if you know anybody who's in need, who would love to dance, but maybe can't afford some of the dance stuff, sounds like you can go right to her and she can help you. So neato, some good stuff for the week. And any last minute questions, I can certainly answer them. I promise to try to keep this to 45 minutes. And I think we might have failed miserably on our trivia this week. I have a winner. Okay, so Ron Galloway got all 4 right. Oh my goodness. So let me give you the answers to this. Ron Galloway, you won our very first charity gift of $100. And somebody must be watching my Facebook Live because the first question was, which of the below passively managed versus actively managed? And the answer was the exchange traded fund and index fund are passively managed because the mutual fund is actively managed. So he got that one right. Number 2, which is not true of a Roth IRA. And the answer was contributions are tax deductible. We know that when you contribute to a Roth IRA, contributions are not tax deductible, but an IRA, the contributions are. So also another reason or why to get a Roth versus an IRA. And then what song does Tom Cruise dance to Risky Business? That was an easy one. All time rock and roll, Bob Seger. Love that man. And then the last question, Ron, I cannot believe you got this right. What is my favorite summertime barbecue? What did he put as the answer? C. How did you know? I like those sides. So very good. And so I will reach out to you and call you, or you can reach out to us and you tell us who your charity is. We'll write the check in Zinnia's name and put proceeds from Ron Galloway. And so I'm excited. Our first one went pretty well. Thanks so much for participating. And hopefully next week, everybody else participates. And we will name our winner at the end of each segment. And I think that basically finishes off the week. Again, thank you so much for tuning in. I will tell you, I don't think I have a life insurance guide on my website. I need to work on that. I have a guide for Social Security and taxes and everything else. You can go to zinniawealth.com. There is a little red book to retirement there that everybody, I don't care what age you are, should read to kind of get your whistle wet and get you thinking. And it does talk a little bit about life insurance. I would download that. That's absolutely for free. Don't forget to listen to my radio station, 97.3 FM, The Sky, every Saturday and Sunday. I'm also on 99.9, the people who live west of Ocala in Marion County and Alachua County. And that's Saturdays at 9 a.m. And thanks all for being here. I'm here to inspire, educate, get you to retirement and beyond. Live by design and not by default. And we'll see you here next week at 3:30.
She is a financial planner and advisor.
She's the founder and president of Zinnia Wealth Management. It's also a popular radio show.
There's a way to have your money in the market and have protected growth.
This holistic approach will help people get to and through retirement.
Absolutely.
You have to change the way that you think. It's not about having these double-digit returns anymore. Things are changing, and you have to have an advisor that's keeping up with the changes.
Your outcome is going to become very desirable if you have some sort of coach helping you along the way.
And our next recipient from the Media and Communications XP, Sharice.
Sharice Rivers.
Do not have to risk all your money in the market to survive because it's about the retirement dream.